Connor McDavid and Auston Matthews are two of the biggest stars in the NHL where they absolutely light up the regular season every year, but run into the same issue every year as well, which is the Stanley Cup playoffs. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to throw Connor McDavid on the Toronto Maple Leafs and Auston Matthews on the Edmonton Oilers and have them switch careers and see who can win a Stanley Cup first. So Leafs fans, welcome Connor McDavid, and of course the Edmonton Oilers, welcome the stash Auston Matthews to your team, and we'll see who the real problem is and who's going to win that first Stanley Cup. Edmonton Oilers, welcome to the team, Auston Matthews, 93 overall, 24 years of age, superstar, X Factor, of course. Here are his stats going into year number 1, and he is going to be playing with Leon Draisaitl and Evander Kane on the Edmonton Oilers. I'm using one of the latest rosters, so I'm surprised that Puljujarvi's still on the team, but it shouldn't matter too much. So Auston Matthews and the Edmonton Oilers, let's see what they can do. And of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs now acquire Connor McDavid, who will be playing with Willie Nylander and Mitch Marner. They have Spets on the team, John Tavares, Michael Bunting, Kasha. Definitely some outdated rosters, but again, should not matter too much. I was wondering why the rosters were so outdated, but it turns out I'm on NHL 22, not NHL 23. Let's restart. Now on NHL 23, let's take a look at the lines. Auston Matthews, a 94 overall, playing with the 95 overall. Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman. We got Evander Kane, Nuge, Yamamoto, Fogel, Derek Ryan, Bukestad, Klim Kostin, Janmark, and Ryan McLeod here. So looking at Auston Matthews' stats here, 94 overall, medium franchise potential, and here are all of his individual stats for year number 1. So we'll see how he performs with the absolute German unit, Leon Draisaitl. Connor McDavid is moving to an offense that has a lot more weapons, including Willie Nylander, Mitch Marner, Ryan O'Reilly, John Tavares, Michael Bunting, and a bottom 6. That's not really the greatest, but their top 6 is unbelievable. So he's now missing his dynamic duo in Leon Draisaitl, but he gets Mitch Marner, so we'll see how that plays out. I know both of them are definitely passers, but McDavid, 97 overall, and these are his individual stats. So let's get year number 1 underway. Also, I'm not controlling either of these teams, so all the moves forward will be done by the computer. Year number 1 coming to a close, and Connor McDavid and the Toronto Maple Leafs finished with 50 wins, 107 points, 25 losses, 7 overtime losses, and no surprise, it seems like this every year, they're going to play the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Auston Matthews and the Edmonton Oilers don't have as good as a year, but they do sneak in the playoffs with 92 points, collecting the final playoff seed, 42 wins, 32 losses, 8 overtime losses, so essentially 42 and 40. Connor McDavid led the way for the Toronto Maple Leafs with 114 points in 82 games, Nylander reaching 100 points for the first time in his career as well. Auston Matthews also has a really good year, finishing with 113 points in 82 games, 54 goals, 59 helpers. But McDavid's old duo leads the league in scoring with 122 points. McDavid and Matthews right under with only 1 point separating each other. As year number 1 comes to a close, the playoff woes of Connor McDavid and Auston Matthews unfortunately continues as both teams get swept in the first round, having Matthews lose to Colorado and McDavid losing to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Year 2 is here, and Auston Matthews has been demoted to that second line on Edmonton. I imagine eventually he'll kind of get moved up, but he is now a 96 overall, looking to bounce back from the first round sweep from last year. The Toronto Maple Leafs look like they lost some key players with Ryan O'Reilly and Michael Bunting no longer on the team, but Connor McDavid is up to a 98 overall, playing on a star-studded first line still with Willie Nylander and Mitch Marner. Can he bounce back from being swept by the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1? Let's get season 2 complete. The year 2 regular season is now in the books, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are once again in the Stanley Cup playoffs, this year finishing with 8 less wins than last year, good for 95 points, 42 wins, 29 losses, and 11 overtime losses. In the Western Conference, Auston Matthews is also able to lead the Edmonton Oilers to the Stanley Cup playoffs with 91 points, 44 wins, 35 losses, and 3 overtime losses. Statistically, Connor McDavid once again achieves the 50-goal plateau, 107 points, but does not lead his team in scoring this year as Willie Nylander puts up 109 points, but that first line was electric as expected. Auston Matthews also achieves the 50-goal plateau, but this year only 97 points in the 82 games, just a couple shy from 100 points. In round one, the Edmonton Oilers and Auston Matthews are able to eliminate the team that swept them last year as they move on to round two versus the St. Louis Blues. Not so good on the other side for the Toronto Maple Leafs as they fall 4-2 to the New York Rangers. So first round exit for the Toronto Maple Leafs once again. Edmonton was down 3-1 in the series, but as you can see in the bottom screen, 3-3 now as they bring it back. Game number 7, does Auston Matthews have the clutch factor? Advanced day, and who is it going to be? It's going to be the Edmonton Oilers in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So let's slow sim like this individually. Edmonton versus New York. Edmonton gets game number 1. Game number 2 goes to Edmonton. Game number 3 goes to the Rangers to make it 2-1. Game number 4 back to the Rangers as well. So we have a best of 3 series coming up now. Here we go. Game number 5. The Rangers win 3 straight. An 8-6 win there. Game 7. 4-3 win for the New York Rangers or for the Edmonton Oilers, not New York Rangers. My apologies. Game 7, does Edmonton have that clutch factor? Here we go. The Stanley Cup champions are the Edmonton Oilers. So Auston Matthews gets it done for the Edmonton Oilers here. Let's take a look at the player stats and let's go to the Edmonton Oilers and Toronto. Let's see Toronto first. McDavid had 10 points in the 6 games. Not enough to get past the first round, though. But if we go over to the Edmonton Oilers, his former squad, Leon Draisaitl had 42 points in 26 games. Oh, my. Auston Matthews, over a point per game, but was the 4th highest point getter on his squad. 42 points. That's probably the most points I've ever seen in a simulation playoff. Entire league. Panarin had 30. Nuge, Hyman, 3 goals, 27 helpers. But Auston Matthews finally gets his first Stanley Cup. And if we go look at the awards, there it is. Stanley Cup for Auston Matthews. Clarence S. Campbell, he's never seen that as well. Any individual awards for Auston Matthews? Got Conn Smythe for Leon Draisaitl, of course. But no individual awards for Auston Matthews or Connor McDavid this year. We're going to give the Toronto Maple Leafs and Connor McDavid one more chance to catch Auston Matthews and see if he can win a Stanley Cup with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But looking at the Edmonton Oilers roster, Auston Matthews is now the first line center instead of Leon Draisaitl. He'll be playing with Nugent Hopkins and Zach Hyman. As for the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're keeping the core together with Willie Nylander, Connor McDavid, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares. They've added Jordan Eberle and Järnkrok still on the squad, making his top 6, but adding Jonathan Toews to the mix. A little bit of veteran leadership, potential Stanley Cup champion. Once again, Johnny Toews, we'll see how it is. So year number 3, can McDavid tie this up, or is Auston Matthews going to win this series? In the potential last year of the simulation, the Toronto Maple Leafs have their best year with 110 points, 51 wins, 23 losses, 8 overtime losses. So we'll see if that can translate. But in round 1, they're playing their arch rivals, the Tampa Bay Lightning. As for the Edmonton Oilers, they also do make the playoffs with 94 points, 42 wins, 30 losses, 10 overtime losses, and they will be playing the Vegas Golden Knights in round number 1. Connor McDavid has a massive year where he scores 64 goals, 114 points as that first line absolutely tore it up once again. 114 points in 82 games as mentioned. Nylander 115 and then Mitch Marner 121. So let's go take a look and see how Auston Matthews did with the Edmonton Oilers here. So we got Auston Matthews, 95 points, -3, 43 goals, but he's already won a Stanley Cup. He's got nothing to prove. Let's go simulate through round number 1 and see what happens and if Connor McDavid can even up this series. The team I'm controlling is actually the Tampa Bay Lightning, so we can hop in a couple of these games and slow simulate them. Obviously, I'm not going to play any of them, but this is not a good start for the Toronto Maple Leafs as they are down 2-1. Let's hop in a little bit of slow sim here and see what McDavid and the Toronto Maple Leafs can do. First period, 2-0 for the Leafs, Marner and Jordan Eberle. Second period, Jake McCabe gets in on the scoring to make it 3-0, and then Järnkrok closes out the game. Stamkos breaks the shutout at the end, but it is now a 2-2 series between the Tampa Bay Lightning and Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's simulate to game number 6 here, where Toronto does indeed lose that in overtime. So Toronto needs to rally off we get it. Game 6 here. Tampa Bay on home ice here, scoring 2 goals from the captain, Steven Stamkos. McDavid, what are you going to do? Outshot 15-5. Second period, Tavares gets a goal for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he ties it up. So both captains have 2 goals for their squad in this game number 6. It's going to come down to the wire. The Lightning out shooting the Leafs slightly, 29-22. And Nick Paul, the Toronto Maple Leaf killer, scores a goal with 10 minutes left. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and there it is. The Toronto Maple Leafs, for the 3rd consecutive year in this video, have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs in round number 1. Some things just don't change. I'm sorry, Leafs fans. As for Auston Matthews and the Edmonton Oilers, they go to the second round where they lose to the eventual Stanley Cup champions, the Vancouver Canucks, who cruise through every team except for really Edmonton, 4-1, 4-2, 4-1, and the sweep of the Florida Panthers in the finals. Here are the 3 years of stats for Connor McDavid on the Toronto Maple Leafs: 114 points, 107 points, 114 points, and in the playoffs, 2 points, 10 points, 3 points. So not too productive in the Stanley Cup playoffs, unfortunately, for Connor McDavid. Auston Matthews, on the other hand, 113 points, 97 points, 95 points, and in the postseason, he was very productive in the Stanley Cup playoff run, where he was kind of carried by Leon Draisaitl, but 28 points in 26 games, 2 points in 4 games, 10 points in 12 games. That's going to do it for the video. Auston Matthews wins the Stanley Cup before Connor McDavid when switching teams. The one thing we learned here is no matter how good this Toronto Maple Leafs roster is, how many superstars they have, how good the regular season was, they're always going to fall in round 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. That's going to do it for the video. Thank you for watching. And for the next 2 players, let me know down in the comments who you want to see next. And I'll have a nice day, and go Sens, go. Bye.